business with. Beautiful area.
Isn't the name Killian, Killian, Irish?
It's Irish.
Because there's a beer called Killian's Irish
Killian's
Red.
Red.
Yeah.
So the whole story about how the Germans they adopted the name Killian in honor of Saint Killian.
Okay.
See, during those days they didn't have last names.
Right. Right.
You know, you came up with a last name based on what kind of farming you did, or whether you're a millwright or whatever kind of thing you did. People just came up with names.
Especially in Germany.
In Germany, so people came up with the Killian name in honor of Saint Killian.
Huh. Okay. And then the C, you know, because they pronounce Celtic is with a C, it'd be the same thing that the Irish pronounce a hard C.
Mm-hmm.
Where did Chip come from?
Well, up there in Newport News during the war, my parents were up there when I was born, and you had you had Daniel Marcus Killian, you had Leon Marcus Killian, you had Leon Marcus Killian Jr., and then they named me Leon Marcus Killian III. Well, there were just too many Leons, so they started calling me Chip off the old block.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I've been called Chip ever since then.
Yeah, so your first name's Leon. What's your middle name?
Marcus. Leon Marcus
Killian.
The third.
Your ancestor then actually was on the Trail of Tears?
Oh, I can't trace exactly who was on the Trail of Tears from my family, but I know that the Cherokee, all the Cherokee out in Oklahoma came from Western North Carolina.
Right. And
they were adopted by the Shawnees, so my family were Cherokee, so I know they came from Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
And one of the military people that took the Cherokee out there was John Hampton Alley. Isn't that strange? Another family member, Colonel John Hampton Alley, was one of the ones that, and they were enslaved. I mean, they were like marched out there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And half of them died before they got there. Well, Freddie Hall was in high school with me. And David Brown, he's the brother of Gavin Brown, longtime mayor in Waynesville. So David and Freddie went to Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill together 1 year ahead of me. But Freddie was also in the band in Waynesville, and so was I. So I knew Freddie and Brownie growing up, and knew him at Carolina. So they went through 4 years there, and in 1965, they both graduated and joined the Air Force. And of course that was the height of the Vietnam War. And so they both went into the Air Force and became navigators in the Air Force. And so they weren't over there very long at all after about a year later they finished their training. But they weren't together when they were deployed. They were in separate locations. But Brownie was killed in the Tet Offensive. He wasn't in an airplane when he was killed. He was on the streets when he got shot. But so that's Brown. That's the one they call Brownie. His name was David Brown.
I think how he got killed, Chip. He was at the Air Force base there in Da Nang, and they were all sequestered in their barracks and told not to come out. And I think he looked up over a ledge to see what was going on outside, and a stray bullet hit him in the head and killed him.
Yeah, he was on the street when he was shot. But I was aware that he'd been killed, and I was aware that Freddie was missing. I took the bar in 1969, passed the bar. And Freddie went missing May the 12th of 1969. And so after taking the bar, I was back in Waynesville, and my mother said, Chip, Freddie Hall's wife is in town visiting the Halls. We should go by there and say hello and pay our respects and all. But we figured Freddie was killed probably because he hadn't been declared dead, but everybody figured he probably was.
Yeah.
So at least not the family. His family certainly didn't, but the people around Waynesville assumed that Freddie wasn't coming back. So we went over and met Julie at the Hall's house, and I saw her a time or two after that. In fact, one time during a snowstorm, Ernie Edwards took she and I on a sleigh ride hooked up 2 sleds behind his Jeep and pulled us all over Waynesville, Green Hill Cemetery and East Street, and went downtown Waynesville and did all those things. And so, but I didn't see her for many, many years. And after 10 years, he was presumed to be dead after 10 years. But his parents never accepted it. And so they had a service at Presbyterian Church when he was presumed to be dead. And I went to the service, and Julie was in town, so she came by our house on Breezemont Drive, same street I live on now. When my daughter Allie was a little girl, a little baby, she came by and visited us at that time. And that's the first time I'd seen her in 20 or more years, and didn't see her again for another 30 years after that. In January of, I think it was in January of last year, 2022, they found his plane. And they were pretty sure it was Freddie's. They found his billfold and sent the billfold to Julie. But they had not tested the DNA evidence. But they did find the plane. After all those years, they finally found the plane that he was in, and the guy, he was the navigator, and the captain, the pilot was a guy named DeSoto from California. So they got their information. They pretty well sure it was them, but they couldn't positively declare it because they have to do DNA testing first. So Julie then contacted Ernie Edwards, who had been Ernie owned the Garrett Funeral Home, and Ernie and Bobby, his wife at the time, were very good to Julie during all this time because Ernie had been a good friend of Freddie's in high school and was also a Vietnam veteran. So they had really looked after Julie when she was in Waynesville.
Who was the Vietnam veteran?
Ernie Edwards. So he was the one that took us on the ride, on the sleigh ride. Gavin Brown, the mayor of Waynesville at the time, or previously the mayor of Waynesville, posted a Facebook story about the fathers. Talked about Mr. Hall and Mr. Brown, whose sons were both killed in Vietnam. And that Facebook, I got the hard copy from a friend of mine. I wasn't doing Facebook, but I got a copy, the hard copy. And he mentioned my name in the hard copy as a friend. He mentioned me and several other people that I knew. And so after that, Julie had contacted Ernie Edwards and asked for my telephone number. So Ernie and I and Gavin Brown and Wells Greeley started meeting and started talking and deciding, we were going to try to urge Julie to have the service in Waynesville rather than in Arlington. And we talked her into doing that. So on the 10th of October of last year, they had the service in Waynesville, which a lot of people saw, had the service in Presbyterian Church and a parade on Main Street in Waynesville from the Presbyterian Church to Green Hill Cemetery. That Wells really says there were between 3,000 and 4,000 people on Main Street for that thing, and he should know.
Wells was walking.
He should know. And it was a huge number of people. And so we had that service, and during that week, she stayed at the Waynesville Country Club, and I'm a member. I arranged for her to have a room there at Waynesville Country Club, and the military paid for it. And then they went on the honor flight the following weekend, and she went on the honor flight, and she and Matthew, her adopted son, and the second or third, they stayed 2 more weeks at my house, and then they went back to Houston. So, but that service, I've got a lot of photographs of that service, and the parade, and the burial in Green Hill Cemetery. It was amazing. I mean, in Waynesville, North Carolina, there's never been anything like that. Because everybody in Waynesville that was anywhere near that could get there was there on Main Street that day. And so Julie was just taken back. She was just absolutely captivated by Waynesville and by all the people that came up to her. It didn't matter who it was.
Carl Mundy. Now his funeral service was a government funeral service for a 4-star general.
It was.
Former commandant of the Marine Corps. And
it had it at the Methodist Church and had a parade from the Methodist Church back up to the American Legion. But it was nowhere near as many people. I was there for that service, And it was quite impressive and nice. I knew Carl, but he taught me how to swim. He was a lifeguard at Lake Junaluska.
Well, Freddie struck a chord. His funeral and everything associated with it struck a chord with people here in Haywood County.
And people, every day I see somebody that was there. It remembers that. But the thing that really, and I'll be talking to Julie later today, probably, or tomorrow morning on the phone. But she was just so taken aback by how the people in Waynesville reached out to her. It didn't matter who it was. She'd stand right there and talk to them as long as they wanted to talk. You know, about whatever they wanted to talk about. And the same thing was true at the airport following the honor flight. She did the same thing there. And there was a group from Cherokee, from the American Legion Cherokee that was there. And all these people just wanted to talk to her. And then after the burial at Green Hill, they had the service at Wells Event Center.
Right.
The same thing was there. She stayed around there and talked to people. As long as anybody was there, she'd be the last one to leave. As long as anybody there wanted to talk to her, she stood there and talked to them. And she wasn't well either. She was limping around pretty bad.
And the Rotary presentation that Gavin and Steve put on, you were a big part of that too.
Yeah.
And that was a wonderful thing, well attended, and just.
There was a great program at Rotary. But Julie wasn't in town then, so she didn't get to see that.
Right.
Tell her the woman who brought her coffee at 4 a.m. says hi.
That's what I'm gonna tell her when I talk to her.
Yeah, because I called her to do her wake up call.
Wouldn't she?
It was the morning she had to go to Washington D.C.
Wasn't she a sweet, wonderful?
Oh yeah, she was really
Isn't
sweet.
she? Not wonderful.
Yeah.
She still is.
I was it was like 4 a.m. and she's like, I gotta get ready, but
What's
she
your
kept
name?
talking and talking.
What is your name again?
Laurie.
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 Yeah, she remembers you because she's mentioned.
I'm sure
your
she
name.
will. Yeah, because
She's mentioned your name to me.
Yeah.
She remembers everybody.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, she's very friendly.
And didn't you say she's going to move to Haywood County at some point?
She never will. She talks about it, but she probably never will.
She's still married to that guy.
Well, she married this guy from North Carolina, a lawyer from North Carolina, from near Lenore, Edgemont, who was a lawyer with the Shell Oil Company.
Yeah.
And he headed up the environmental remediation following the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska. He was an engineer and a lawyer. And she married him when the 10 years expired. You know, they're presumed to be dead after 10 years. And the Halls didn't appreciate it because they still thought he was alive. But she married this guy, and they adopted the son of one of his relatives, the Coffees, and Matthew, who was here with her that day. Oh, article, and Corey, did you see the article?
The one on
In the Smoky Mountain News?
Mhm.
That article is up, according to McLeod, the editor for Smoky Mountain News. It's been nominated for a major award by the NC Press Association.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're going to announce it in June. And I don't know whether he'll win it or not, but if he doesn't, if that doesn't win it, I don't know what would.
Just the nomination is prestigious.
And he spent. Julie said that he spent 3.5 hours with her on the telephone, interviewing her on the telephone.
Wow.
And he interviewed me too. I'm quoted in the article.
Well, Chip, here it is, April 30th, 2024, and we're sure glad that you had some time with us today. Is there any closing elements or history of Haywood County that you've had experience that you want to share with us before we wrap it up here?
When I think about it, I'll call you.
Okay.